Welcome, welcome. Come one, come all. Unexpected points here. Kevin Cole here. A unscheduled reaction live stream / podcast. Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is doing the snow bunnies in the in the dollar bills right now after getting super insanely paid here. Highest contract in NFL history. I mean, we'll get all the details on it, but I don't think you can fake the funk when it comes to the fact that it is $51 million per year over five seasons, this extension. What we will find out all the details about are the guarantees. It's all about guarantees. That's a big thing. Lamar Jackson's learning that now in the NFL, how big of a deal these guarantees play into how this contract goes. And the guarantees here, 110 fully guaranteed. So again, remember, Lamar Jackson, supposedly some other people, all these people talking about fully guaranteed contracts. This extension that we're talking about here, 5 years, so over $250 million, only 110 fully guaranteed. Just another piece, although maybe not the biggest piece of the puzzle, because we'll have Burrow and we'll have Herbert to figure out, but another piece of the puzzle playing in here to say Deshaun Watson's deal was a little bit of an anomaly. We're not going to see $240 million fully guaranteed contracts here. Not even getting close to this. Now, what Hurts also does have is an additional $70 million in injury guarantees. And I assume when we get the breakdown on this, there will be some of the rolling guaranteed structure that we see in a lot of these different contracts. For Kyler Murray's contract, similar, I would say, in that Murray was a year further on in his career, but he had 1 year left because he had the 5th-year option, which was not available to the Eagles because Hurts was a second-round pick. He signed the 5-year deal. He got enough guarantees and rolling guarantees, I think, to put it somewhere in the 160, 165, 170 type of ballpark there. So proportionally, maybe even a little bit more than we're talking about here once we get the full details on it. And essentially had the Cardinals locked into 2026. I think here would be the same thing. The Eagles locked into 2027. Okay, what are some other interesting points about this deal? Well, I think you have to think about it from the perspective of Hurts being a second-round pick and just how quickly the money falls for players when they are coming out of that position. So Hurts is not going to have the type of leverage that first-round picks have coming into these negotiations. Now, because of the fact that he just hasn't earned that much money, so the equivalent payday they're going to get here is so enormous. I mean, maybe he's a very confident dude and he's not that concerned about it, but if you think about it, the amount of actual straight cash that he had earned so far in his career going into this year, $4.5 million. That's it. That he had earned in total over those first 3 years of his career. And he was set to make about $4.2 million this year. There's some escalators in there because of how well he's played in the final year of his contract. But still, $4.2 million is what we're playing off of. Whereas if someone is going into a 5th-year option as a first-round pick, we're talking about it being closer to $30 million. That's part of this deal. Even if we're not talking about the option, if someone's a first-round pick overall in the NFL draft. I mean, let's look up what's Joe Burrow's 4th year going to be. Remember, Hurts was $4.2 million. Joe Burrow is going to be, he's got a bunch of bonuses in here, but he has an $11.5 million cap hit at least. He got more up front. So the cash isn't going to be as big of a deal, but still $11.5 million cap hit versus we're talking about $4 million. And then again, if they extend him on, they'll have another $30 million that'll come as part of the 5th-year option. So that's something to think about when you're looking at the numbers here. It's easy to get the guaranteed number lower for a second-round pick like Hurts because for Joe Burrow, if they extend Burrow now, they'll lump in his base salary, his roster bonus, his $5.5 million of guarantees for this season. They'll lump that in. They'll lump in the pre-exercised 5th-year option, which is another 30 million. So that'll be another 35 million. So they'll have about 35 million that they can add to the guaranteed amount on top of whatever new money, real guarantee there is there, which cannot optically at least be added to Jalen Hurts' contract. So I think this helps the Bengals there because that's such a low guaranteed number. They'll be able to crush Jalen Hurts' guaranteed number there. Obviously, everything I'm saying applies to it applies to Justin Herbert also. All this different stuff as it was for Burrow. And for Lamar, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what it matters. I think it's a strong piece of evidence in the Ravens' favor to say, hey, Lamar, we'll give you this deal. We'll bump it up a few $1 million. We'll bump up those guarantees a bit more. It's a 5-year extension. It's a long deal. We'll do this for you. And if Lamar chooses to take it, then Lamar chooses to take it. If he doesn't, which it sounds like he won't, I don't know what he's going to do. There doesn't seem to be more offers coming out for him, and they're getting more and more evidence from the market that this is a fair deal as of right now. Lamar probably doesn't see himself in the same category as someone like Jalen Hurts, despite the fact that Hurts went to the Super Bowl, had more playoff success than Lamar has had, the unanimous MVP, the longer track record of history, all that sort of stuff probably has Lamar Jackson believing he deserves that much more and will want to wait around for Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert before he figures out what that is. Now, if Burrow's deal comes out or Herbert's deal comes out and it's quite a bit more significant, I don't know. That could just scuttle the whole Lamar Jackson deal. And maybe it'll just have to be something where he goes into free agency eventually after playing out some tags, or else he really can't get anything done there. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what they're going to be able to do there because he's just not going to get the fully guaranteed that he's talking about wanting on there. As far as what this deal means for the Eagles. So again, they were going to have Hurts on for 1 year, $4.2 million. They could have potentially franchise tagged him thereafter, which would cost them, I don't know, somewhere in the neighborhood of $35 million. So it would have been about, let's say, $40 million for 2 years if they did the franchise tag, the non-exclusive franchise tag. So I guess they could have lost him if teams given up 2 first-round picks for him if they wanted to go that route, because it's kind of cost prohibitive or almost cost prohibitive to go a higher route there. So they could have played all that out. They decided not to. The no trade clause is interesting. I don't think it's a huge effect because I think if a team moves on from a player, that player is kind of choosing where they want to go anyway. But how we saw the Deshaun Watson deal play out, the auction for Deshaun Watson play out, and the fact that he was able to secure that fully guaranteed contract, I think that, and he had the no trade clause. So even if the Texans got a deal that they felt was sufficient and Watson was okay going there, Watson could still pinpoint choose exactly where he wanted to go, even if he would have been agreeable to some other options and, made the Browns pay with that fully guaranteed deal. So maybe the no trade clause will really just become a standard procedure because of an incident like that. But I don't think it's a huge deal going forward. I mean, they had the no trade clause with Russell Wilson, and the Seahawks got plenty of compensation for that deal from the Broncos. Concerns that I may have about this, and I think it's one of those things where someone had sent out my initial Jalen Hurts was a great pick, saying it's like another chance for a victory lap. I mean, I'll take it. But I think at this point, I don't know. You just can't give a ton of kudos. I think you can kind of look back and appreciate where you've been with that pick, with playing off of Carson Wentz's deal, with getting rid of him and then getting that contingent first-round pick, all that other stuff that they were able to do and work out of that, and the value they've gotten from Hurts, and you'll continue to have him on a low contract number for the next year or two. Yeah, you can be happy about that. But this is when things get difficult. This is when things get difficult for the team. Rather than having a $1, $2, $3 million cap hit, eventually in a year or two, Hurts is going to be in the 20s. Hurts is going to be in the 30s. Hurts is going to be in the 40s or 50s for his cap hit. You have A.J. Brown. You have Devontae Smith. You have Dallas Goedert. You have a very impactful offensive line. You have a defense with a ton of turnover. that you're going to have to start to bring guys in. Again, not affected this year, but it's something we'll eventually have to see in the future. And with Hurts, he really only had one true breakout type of year this season. That's another thing to consider when it comes to this, because if we're thinking about this sustainability of being able to work around things like the Chiefs or maybe the Bills even can work around where receivers leave, receivers come, receivers go, the offensive line gets rebuilt, your ability to work around all these things, we'd have to see how he's going to get it done. This year in particular, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, those guys contributed pretty significantly to Hurts's efficiency. Now, his efficiency was pretty good even in 2021. He was in the top 10 sort of range, but from an unadjusted basis, it was more like between 11 and 15. Whereas this year on an unadjusted basis, his pure EPA per play type of number, it was coming in as being probably second to Patrick Mahomes, maybe third if you look at Tua, who's small sample size, or maybe as worse as fourth, possibly if you look at Josh Allen, depending upon how you're constructing and what sort of metric you're using here. Now, he does fall quite a bit in my adjusted quarterback efficiency numbers. The adjusted quarterback efficiency numbers, he has the second highest negative discount. So a discount here to his production based upon receivers. Tua had the biggest discount. Geno Smith was pretty close to Jalen Hurts, but Hurts took a hit there. He had, let me see, the second biggest decline for quality offensive line. Aaron Rodgers, number one there, had the best offensive line numbers by my numbers. Hurts took a decline there. He had the second biggest discount for strength of schedule. Josh Allen was the only one who had a easier strength of schedule than Jalen Hurts did this season. So in total, all of his different adjustments, his actual EPA this season was 144 expected points added out of about 600 plays. He had about 40 taken off by the adjustments, which dropped him down to 105, which dropped him below Trevor Lawrence, below Josh Allen on a per play basis, below Tua on a per play basis, and below Jimmy Garoppolo on a per play basis. I know you guys love Jimmy. So there were some adjustments there. That would be a little bit of a concern. A little bit. I'm not saying it's huge. I'm not saying we shouldn't respect what Hurts has been able to do. He's been pretty good, but he almost had a perfect storm type of season as far as how everything came to be around him. Again, just between receivers and between blocking, extremely high numbers. Not a lot of yak, but that's really not his game. Like, he doesn't throw middle of the field yak type of throws. A.J. Brown can do that sometimes, but he was more a deep passer down the sidelines. He did more to the middle of the field this time with A.J. Brown, but still, that's where, his bread and butter. So that is maybe a little bit of a concern. The second thing I think is a little bit of a concern with him is just injuries. He missed a couple of games. We're talking about shoulder injury, which is obviously highly correlated to his running and the fact that he's running. It's kind of like the opposite of the Lamar talk. Lamar only got injured in the pocket, and it wasn't like he was running to get injured. Well, Hurts kind of is that guy who could re-aggravate or hurt himself running to get injured. So that would be a little bit of a concern for him going forward. But generally, it's kind of a deal you have to do. And I think you weren't going to be able to get the price any lower, it doesn't seem like, with Burrow and Hurts coming. So because of that, I think was good. The length, I think, is really good. And that's probably a big thing here. We talk about affecting the quarterback market. 5 years is good. When Deshaun Watson was re-upping with the Texans, let me see. So it would have been 17, 18, 19. So it would have been after the 2019 season, the 2020 offseason. He signed a 4-year deal. He wanted a 3-year deal. This is after Patrick Mahomes signed a 10-year deal. So ultimately, these longer deals just end up being more team-friendly. more room to restructure. The cap has more time to grow, so just optically it looks a little bit better. So the fact this will be in full a 6-year deal when you add in the year left on his contract and then the 5 years of extension, that's good. And that's really good for the Bengals and the Chargers renegotiating these deals. If they can get 5 years out of those contracts too, if they do it this offseason, it's a full 7 years that they can that would come out from this point, which ends up making very, very attractive. I don't know what I think it's Lee Steinberg was doing for Patrick Mahomes and that deal, that 10-year deal. I mean, I get it. It was an eye-popping $450 million number at the time, but just not good. Give the fact that they gave up so little in the way of guarantees, at least proportionally here for the Eagles, and got the 5 years, I think looks pretty strong. So that's going to help other teams negotiating going forward. Josh Allen was a 6-year extension when he came around after his 3rd season. So it was, a 6-year extension, de facto 8-year contract that he was signing right there. I mean, that's pretty strong too. So I think teams are winning when it comes to getting the longer deals there. And I don't know what Jax is looking for. Maybe he's only looking for a 4-year deal. They're going to a 4-year extension. That could be another sticking point now that 5 years seems to be established in the market. And 5 years is probably going to be the minimum that the Bengals and the Chargers are going to want to do for their particular contracts. So we'll get more details as the numbers roll in. But for this one, I would say I can't give the Eagles an A. I can't give the Eagles anything where you're saying you get an A for giving someone the highest contract in NFL history. But there wasn't a lot of options here. And I think your ability to trade out of these deals eventually, as we see what happened with Goff and with Wentz and with others, is a little bit higher than some people think. And even if you're tying yourself to a quarterback, what you want to do is you don't want to wait too long. You don't want to do what the Dallas Cowboys did, where after playing out a full franchise tag, even an injured Dak, they were willing to give him a huge deal. And because they didn't have any runway in terms of seasons on there, they're negotiating up against a $40 million franchise tag. They gave him a huge deal, which now basically needs to be restructured all the time going forward, locking him in there for a much, much longer amount of time. So if they're set on Hurts, go ahead and make the deal. I think he was okay last year, 2 years ago. He was obviously good last year. You have a good runway here. And in a few years, if things turn south, I wouldn't worry too much about the franchise tag. I mean, not the franchise tag, the no trade clause and those sorts of implications. They'll be able to get around it. One other thing I want to touch on that I didn't touch on in the pod at the end of last week. I mean, I'll do another Q&A pod at the end of this week, but I just knew, talking about Hurts, it was going to be seemed like a lifetime had gone by with this Monday news by the time talking about it on Friday. I'm also going to have Rich Rebar on the show tomorrow to talk about skill position prospects, but we're not going to touch on this Hurts contract too much. But I just want to hit on the OBJ contract a little bit here. I don't get it. That's a lot of money, a lot more money than what Michael Thomas or others who maybe you would put in a similar bucket. I had him as similar-ish for their projections going forward. I know OBJ looked really good for a handful of games for the Rams. We're talking about more than a full season ago. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there. But that's up there with potentially being one of the riskiest contracts this entire offseason for anyone, the Ravens signing that deal. And I know you say, oh, maybe they're trying to get Lamar Jackson to commit. Well, I don't know. That's not good. That's not good. $15 million plus some incentives that could go even higher on that one. Crazy, crazy, crazy deal. All right. Anyway, that's all I got for him right on the Jalen Hurts deal for right now. We'll get more details as we go on. Just want to hit everyone up with that while you can. Go ahead and leave me any questions if you want me to get to them on the Friday pod. Otherwise, like I said, I'll be talking to Rich Rebar tomorrow, and I'll post this tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening, discussing all of the different wide receiver and quarterback for sure, and then probably also running back prospects. Okay, everybody.